This video is for Artifact 11, Standard 6.2, ISTE Criterion 20, Manage the Use of Technology for Learning in a Non-Traditional Classroom Setting. For this standard, I created a creative computing project that I did with the Girls Who Code coding group at my school. For my creative computing project, I worked with the Girls Who Code after-school program at my school to create digital storytelling projects. The projects were created in Scratch and used to tell a story of their choice. I was inspired by the iTech 7485 digital storytelling project and the desire many middle school students have to create coding projects in Scratch. Since the project was completed in a non-traditional setting, during an extracurricular club, there were no content-specific requirements for the story. This is a screenshot of my creative computive project lesson proposal that just details the project being digital storytelling in Scratch and just outlines different components of it. In terms of project requirements, the girls were required to create a digital story that had at least two sprites interact with each other, at least two sprites that have movement, a minimum of two background images, and the story had to be 45 seconds in length overall, and the story needed to be reset and run multiple times. In terms of managing technology, the learners used their school-issued Chromebook devices to complete the project. Therefore, the learners were operating under the acceptable use policy of the school and were restricted with certain blocks, even though it was a non-traditional setting. The learners were not permitted to use their own personal devices, including cell phones. They created Scratch accounts with their school Gmail, since Scratch is an approved website by the county, and the learners were able to use all the settings, graphics, backgrounds, and sounds within Scratch, as well as self-recorded sounds. The learners were supervised by myself and the media specialist throughout the project, and they were also provided with a project checklist to ensure they were checking off all the technological components of the digital story. At the beginning of the club meeting, I really wanted to get students thinking about how they could create their own digital story. So I did model for them how they could create a digital story. I made sure to show them how to choose backgrounds, characters, or sprites, how to create a conversation between them, and ensure that we use the wait command to ensure that the conversation flowed seamlessly. I also gave the learners access to the library of tutorial videos on the Scratch website to help them create their digital storytelling project. They were also provided with the storytelling interactive tutorial that they could use to work through and the Create a Story cards that Scratch provides as well. The learners were also encouraged to provide feedback on each other's digital stories throughout the project. And especially once they determined their story, they could share that with a peer just to get feedback on the entire process. This video is for Artifact 11, Standard 6.3, ISTE Criterion 21, Create Opportunities for Students to Use a Design Process and/or Computational Thinking. For this standard, I worked on a creative computing project with the Girls Who Code extracurricular club at my school. Here you can see screenshots of my overall proposal, especially in terms of the design process and how I implemented computational thinking with the project. In terms of the design process, I chose to allow the students to go through the Creative Play 5-step process in which they were inspired. They then used that inspiration to imagine. They build a project, play with it, and then share their ideas. In terms of inspire, I provided the students with random bags full of random characters, and it was their job to create a story with the characters in the bag just to get them thinking about all the different types of personality possibilities. For Imagine, I provided them with a brainstorming sheet just to get them thinking about different ideas for what they would want their digital story to be about. In terms of building, I did provide them with a Scratch digital storytelling outline just to help guide them along that building process. For a play, the students definitely did have a fun time building their stories and interacting with each other's stories. And for sharing it out, we did do a gallery walk where the students were able to provide feedback to each other on sticky notes. So you can see some of these say, nice job using sound. I saw that you tried to make the wizard fly. You can try recording your own sound next time. So they gave two positive things and then one way that they could improve that project. I like that you included three sprites instead of just two, just providing them with encouraging feedback. Overall, the learners enjoyed the steps of the design process and created really engaging stories during the Inspire portion. The random pictures forced the learners to think outside of the box and create a digital story that consisted of different sprites and backgrounds. They enjoyed looking at my sample story and helping me create a new story during the meeting. In terms of computational thinking, the students were able to use decomposition by breaking down their overall story into different parts and smaller scenes to help them create an overall project that flowed really well. In terms of abstraction, they were able to use the story outline to break down the main purpose of each scene, and that allowed the learners to only focus on the information or details needed to achieve the goal of each scene. For debugging or testing, throughout the creation of the digital story, the learners constantly had to test their code to ensure that the backgrounds and sprites were interacting with each other correctly. And if a sprite was not exhibiting the correct movement or if a background did not change, the learners had to determine the error, fix it, and retry the code. Lastly, in terms of algorithms, the learners created their digital story. They used algorithms to dictate the movements, actions, and sounds to produce an animation that met the requirements. And then near here, you can see some photos of the learners creating their different digital storytelling projects. This video is for Artifact 11, Standard 6.4 is the Criterion 22, Model and Nurture Creativity. For this criterion, I created or worked on a creative computer project with the Girls Who Code after school coding group at my school. Here you can see pieces of my overall proposal or project proposal focus mostly on nurturing creativity and how I made sure that I nurtured creativity with the Girls Who Code group. In terms of creative problem solving, at the beginning of the project, I shared my digital storytelling project with the learners and modeled my thought process for them. I showed them my brainstorming sheet and explained the goals for each scene in my story. This helped the learners see my creative process and provided me with an opportunity to talk about the debugging and testing that was necessary to achieve the final product. Modeling helped nurture their creativity in a supportive environment. And here you can see my digital storytelling project that I shared with them. For creative expression, the Scratch program provides learners with a choice-based program to create their own unique digital stories. Throughout the creation process, learners were encouraged to let their creativity shine by including backgrounds, unique interactions, sounds, and movement to tell their own story. They were really able to let these stories come to life. It was also important to me for them to have choice and voice. So Scratch provided students with a creative space to tell unique stories through the use of block-based code. Scratch provided students with choice as they created stories with sprites, backgrounds, movements, interactions, and sounds. When it was time to share their work with others, the learners participated in a gallery walk to watch the stories of three other club members. To complete the gallery walk, the learners chose a Scratch project to review. For 3 minutes, the learners watched the digital story of someone else and left feedback. This process was repeated 2 more times as the learners moved to different projects. And in terms of their feedback, they gave 2 positive things and then one area of improvement that they could do just to make the project better if they wanted to. So you can see that one of the learners said that using the glide really made it look like the person was walking, which was a nice feature to achieve in that digital story to make it seem realistic in the story they were telling.